I'm at my mechanic buddy's house the other day, and we're talking about grinders and bench pedestals and things like that. And that came up in the conversation. I said, man, I'm so happy I put casters on my bench grinder, and I can roll it around now, and it's not in the way, and I don't have to like pick it up and drag it and scratch my concrete. And when I want to move it outside because I'm working outside, I can move it outside. When I want to move it around the garage, I can just roll it around. It's great. But I found out the other day, an unintended consequence was I was wailing on a piece of whatever I was grinding and on the grinder wheel, and of course it walked away, and I had to put my foot on it to hold it still, and that kind of annoyed me. And my buddy said, well, why don't you just weld the casters on the back side so that the casters stick out the back so that the actual pedestal base sits on the floor, and then you can tip it back onto the casters and roll it around, but when you set it down, it's solid. And I was like, well, where were you when I did this? Obviously, he wasn't there telling me what to do, which I wish he was. But so that's what I'm going to do for my Vise here. I've had this since I was probably 20, I don't know, my early 20s. So, almost 30 years or so. And I've always just tipped it and then rolled it on the wheel, and then just rolled the wheel. And it's kind of a pain because it's heavy at the top. And so obviously I don't want to put casters on this because I am pushing on it really hard a lot. And so what we'll do is we'll just weld some wheels on it. Now, I don't have any casters laying around. I'm trying to just use what I have laying around. So this axle with these wheels actually came off one of these. Actually came off this one right here. This was a welding cart I got from Air Gas. And this axle was on this right here. And you can see how much smaller the wheels are. If you watch my off-road welding cart build videos, you know what this is about. You remember this. And so this is wider, so it gives it more stable base of support. And obviously bigger tires, rolls over the gravel, rolls over the uneven terrain if I'm working on a project somewhere out on the property. Obviously I'm not going too far, but I can roll this around in the dirt and it rolls a lot easier. I also widened the front here, as you can see, but that's another video. And so I just kind of grabbed that axle, and it should be pretty strong. This is 12 millimeters thick, and so just under 1/2 inch. And these tires, or these plastic wheels here, look fairly substantial, so I think they'll be fine. Now, as far as locating this goes, I'd like to just be able to tip it back onto these wheels pretty easily. So my plan is to use this 1 3/4 inch gap right here to my advantage, where it's flat right there, and use this 1 1/4 angle. Now I've cut 2 5-inch pieces, and so those will just go out here against the wheel, and I'll have to cut a little bit of a bevel right here to put it up against the steel, and then cut a little hole here for a 1/2 inch hole right here for the axle. Now, the axle isn't quite centered in, so that's about horizontal right there. It isn't quite centered in this gap right here, which is okay. I think I can adjust for that a little bit, but I'm just going to keep these wheels on the floor right next to this wheel. And so it's fairly flat, and the wheels are basically in contact with the ground. So I don't have to tip it back very far for these wheels to engage. And I think that's what I want to do. I don't know. I'm going to do it and see how it goes. And hopefully this will do a good job for me. Allow me to roll this outside if I need to pound on something, or if I'm cutting something with the portaband, or whatever. And then I can move it around in the garage and get it on my way when I need to. All right, let's get started. All right, got the holes drilled in the little 5-inch long pieces of angle. And I cut them at a 45. I don't know what angle that is, but this will get me close. And that's kind of what it's going to look like right there. Get this up without dropping the other one. Okay, and then that distance should keep the wheels away from the base wheel enough to give me a little bit of a gap, and good. Okay. Yep, nice and thick. Good penetration. I'm super happy with that. Incidentally, this is one of my first welding projects with a stick welder. When I was learning to stick weld, this is one of my projects that I was learning on. And so that bead, and it's not great, but it held, for 30 years. So yeah, welded this plate on all around here. So I had a flat plate to weld to there. And that was arc welding, yeah, when I was in my early 20s, so almost about 30 years ago. So if you're just getting into welding, you know, don't think you can't do this. I've been welding for close to 30 years now with stick and MIG and flux core, and I'm not great at it. You know, my skills and what I do now, even now, would be insulting to a real steel worker. I work with steel. I'm not a steel worker. There's a big difference. And but you know, for homestead or for taking care of your own stuff and fixing your own stuff, it's a skill that's really paid off. And if you watch my other videos, I talk a lot about this just because I feel like it's the most useful skill anybody's ever taught me, and I have my father-in-law to thank for that, because he did his own welding too. Never professionally trained, but had picked up a lot of things from his dad was a welder, and his brother and he grew up, you know, just nobody told them they couldn't do stuff, so they just did it, and they learned. And he passed that skill on to me. So yeah, if you're thinking about this, definitely get into it. Start off small. Start off, you know, don't do anything dangerous. Don't weld on trailers. Don't weld on structural steel overhead stuff that's going to fall on people. You know, be smart about it until you develop your skills. And you really have to use your judgment about, you know, what's worth the risk of me welding this versus getting a professional to do it. This might not work. This thing's pretty heavy. Oh, okay. So much easier. Wow. Now I'll put some paint on it and be done. So because these brackets ended up a little narrower than I wanted, maybe a good thing, because had I had them tight against the wheels, which is what was my original plan, that when I burned them in, they could have warped out and then bound my wheels, which is fixable. You know, you can drill a hole further out or whatever, bend the brackets in, maybe pound them in. But anyway, I did have to make up for the space here, and I didn't have any round stock that was 1/2 inch in diameter, but I did have this square, and it's fine. So I just cut a couple pieces out of the equal size, and then put a washer in the wheel, then another washer. Okay. One of the things you know, you think about something, you think, oh yeah, that's exactly how I want it, and that's gonna solve my problems. So I put the wheels at the front of the vise here, as you noticed, as we talked about, and the drawback of that is, as I'm working on the vise here from the front of it, I'm gonna be kicking these. So maybe I should have put them on the side. I know I didn't want to put them on the back, because when I want to roll it up against something, I still want the vise facing forward, so that if I need to use it, I can just, it's, you know, the handle's already facing the direction I want. So it'll be a little bit of a drawback having these wheels right here, because I will be kicking them or maybe even tripping on them as I step toward the vise or step away from it. But and then again, sometimes I'm working from the side of the vise. You know, if I'm cutting something, I'm standing at the side of it, one side or the other. It's rare I work from the back of it. So a lot of these projects you notice I'm doing, mostly since my back has been giving me problems, are just to try to make my life easier. When I was younger, I'd move this thing around, no problem. You know, it was not a big deal to drag stuff around the garage. I didn't think twice about it. But now when my back tells me, don't do that again. So I'm takes a little extra time to do this. You know, this little project was a little over an hour, but you know, it'll pay off in the long run, being able to tip the vise back and roll it around.